Eliana had always felt different from the rest of her family. Her brothers and sisters had plenty of money, and they spoiled her, making her feel like she didn't belong. She is quiet and kind, but her family never respects her. She is excited when her family plans a vacation to Zanzibar. She thought, maybe this time her family would treat her like real family. Maybe this trip would bring them closer together. However, once they arrived at their destination, Eliana's heart sank. While everyone else was relaxing and enjoying the beautiful resort, she was assigned a bunch of tasks. She had to help the family carry their luggage, serve drinks, and do anything they asked. To her, this didn't feel like a vacation at all, but more like being brought in as a servant. Eliana had been looking forward to this trip for weeks. She had imagined walking on soft white sand beaches, feeling the breeze on her face, and finally having a chance to be with her family. But from the moment she arrives, she realizes that she is little more than a servant to her family. While the siblings were relaxing on the beach, sipping expensive cocktails, Eliana was running back and forth, serving them drinks. Even the waiters at the resort were treated with more respect than her. "Hurry up, Eliana, you're too slow." Her brother was furious because she didn't deliver the wine in time. She really wanted to remind her brother that she was his sister, not a maid, but in the end she chose to remain silent. Every time they go shopping, Sister Violet buys expensive clothes and jewelry, while Eliana doesn't even have the money to buy herself a simple souvenir. Even so, she was the one carrying everyone's heavy shopping bags and struggling under the weight. As the family members smiled and took photos, stepmother Hannah sneered and said, "You should thank us for bringing you along." Eliana forced a smile, but inside she wanted to cry at night. The family members slept in a luxurious private villa with a beautiful sea view, but Eliana was arranged to sleep in the staff dormitory. The dormitory room was cramped, hot, and uncomfortable, with only one small, hard bed. She could hear the sound of the waves outside, a constant reminder of what she was missing. She stared at the ceiling, her heart heavy and full of pain. She couldn't help but wonder, is this what family is like? One evening, after a long day of running errands for her siblings, Eliana sat alone in a quiet corner of the resort. She watched her family laughing and enjoying an expensive dinner, but they never invited her to join them. She felt extremely humiliated. At this time, a waiter passed by, looked at her with pity, and asked kindly, "Are you okay, miss?" Eliana nodded, fighting back tears, but deep inside, something was breaking. The resort was gleaming with golden lights, and the waiters set the table for a sumptuous dinner. The air was filled with laughter and the aroma of food. Eliana watched her family sitting around an elegant dining table, chatting happily. They were wearing the latest designer clothes, their jewelry sparkling in the light, but Eliana was wearing a faded, worn-out dress that was far less gorgeous than her sister's dresses, but it was her best. She had been busy all day trying to get dinner done, and now she was tired and hungry. When the waiter brought out the steaming food, Eliana felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this time, she would be able to sit down and have a meal with her family. Maybe this time, they would treat her like family. Her stomach growled as she reached for the plate, but before she could reach it, a strong hand grabbed her wrist. She looked up in confusion and met the cold gaze of her father Liam. Her father Liam said, "Let the real guests eat first." His voice was calm, but it hurt more than a knife. Eliana was stunned and looked around the table, but no one spoke for her. No one even showed any surprise, as if in their eyes, she was really just a servant, not their daughter and sister. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she fought them back. She swallowed the lump in her throat and took a step back. She did so much for her family, carrying their bags, serving them drinks, obeying their every command, but they wouldn't even let her eat a meal. As she stood there, watching her family enjoy an expensive dinner, a painful thought came to her mind. Am I their daughter? For the first time in her life, she felt extremely lonely. Eliana sat alone in a quiet corner of the resort, staring at the sea, feeling heavy. The grand dinner had just ended, and the family was still laughing and enjoying life, but she didn't have any food and was not even allowed to sit with them. She wiped away her tears and tried to be strong, but deep inside, something was broken. Just then, her cell phone rang. She glanced at the screen and saw an unknown number. For a moment, she wanted to ignore the call, but for some reason, she picked up the call. "Hello." Her voice was tired and a little hoarse. A man's voice came from the other end of the phone. "This is Ade Whale Barrister. I have been trying to contact you for a few weeks about your late grandmother's estate. We need to discuss something urgent." Eliana sat up straight, her heart beating faster. She was confused. What inheritance? After a brief pause, the lawyer spoke again, his tone serious. "Your grandmother left you a large inheritance, a house in Lagos, several properties, and a large sum of money, all of which belong to you." Eliana felt dizzy. She held the phone tightly and whispered, "This is impossible. My family never told me this." The lawyer sighed. "Here is the problem, Ms. Eliana. Your family has been trying to appropriate your estate. They tried to forge documents, but we discovered and stopped them in time. I need you to come to Lagos immediately and claim what is yours." At this moment, Eliana's world changes forever. For years, she has been treated as a nobody, humiliated, ignored, used like a servant, and she has always believed that she is worthless. But now she knew the truth. She was not poor or powerless, she was rich, and her family had deceived her. When she ended the call, her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She looked up and saw her family members were still laughing and ignoring her. They stole her things, kept quiet about her inheritance, and now are here enjoying a luxurious vacation while she suffers. Anger was building inside her, and for the first time in her life, she would not remain silent. The tables were turning. With shaking hands, Eliana left the bustling resort. She needed a quiet place, a place where she could think and breathe freely. She found a bench near the beach and quickly called her lawyer back. Her heart was beating so hard that she could hardly hear the phone ringing. The lawyer quickly answered the phone. "Ms. Eliana, thank you for calling me back. I have been trying to contact you for several weeks." No one had ever told her this, so she swallowed hard and asked, "What's going on with my grandmother's inheritance?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then the lawyer said in a calm and serious voice, "Your grandmother left everything to you, including her house in Lagos, several other properties, and her large savings. You are the legal owner of these properties." Eliana felt as if the ground beneath her feet disappeared. She pressed her hands to her chest and said, I don't understand. My family never told me that she had these things." The lawyer sighed. "Because they didn't want you to know, they wanted to take all of this for themselves and tried to forge documents claiming that the property was theirs, but we stopped them in time." Eliana gasped. She never imagined that the family member whom she loved and served all her life would do such a thing. Her thoughts raced back to the details of her trip, carrying her family's bags, bringing them drinks, sleeping in the tiny staff quarters, being treated like a servant while her family lived in luxury. They had kept a huge secret from her, stolen her things, used her, lied to her. Anger made her fingers tightly grasp the phone, and her heart was filled with disbelief. How could they do this? How could they look her in the eye every day and act like she was nothing? But she is not useless. She is rich and powerful. Now she knows the truth, while her family is still kept in the dark. For the first time in her life, Eliana will not remain silent. The rules of the game have changed, and this time, she holds all the initiative. Eliana sat there blankly, clutching her phone tightly until her knuckles turned white. The lawyer's words echoed in her mind. Her family had stolen from her, lied to her, used her like a maid, and kept her inheritance a secret. Her chest heaved with anger, betrayal, and pain. She had always known her family treated her differently, but she had never expected them to be so cruel. They made her believe she was worthless, humiliated her, ignored her, and forced her to serve them like a nobody while they enjoyed the wealth that was rightfully hers. Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time they were not from sadness, but from anger. She had spent her whole life trying to please her family, doing everything they asked of her, just to be loved and accepted. But now she saw the truth. They had never cared about her. To them, she was just someone they could control. The cruel smirk of her stepmother Hannah, the cold words of her father Liam, the selfish laughter of her brothers and sisters, all the painful memories came flooding back like fire burning in her veins. "They think I'm worthless." Eliana's voice trembled, and she slowly stood up, her heart beating like a drum. Let's see how they feel when the tables are turned. For the first time in her life, she would no longer remain silent, no longer beg for her family's love, and no longer allow them to bully her. They thought they had won, but they didn't know what would happen next. Eliana wiped her tears and took a deep breath. The pain in her heart was still there, but something had changed. She was no longer weak, no longer the one who allowed her family to treat her like a servant, nor was she the one who was quiet and obedient, enduring in silence. Her family stole her things, lied to her, and humiliated her, but they had no idea what was waiting for them next. She walked back to the grand dinner with steady steps. The dinner was still full of laughter, clinking glasses, and fancy conversations, and the family members acted as if nothing had happened. But for Eliana, everything was different. She no longer bowed her head, no longer hesitated, and walked straight to the large dining table and pulled out the chair where her father Liam usually sat. The room suddenly became quiet, and everyone's eyes turned to her. Stepmother Hannah's face was twisted with anger, and she asked sharply, "What are you doing?" Eliana ignored her, picked up a glass, poured herself some wine, took a sip slowly, and then said in a calm and steady voice something that shocked the whole family. "I just found out that I am very rich, richer than all of you." Father Liam choked on his wine, stepmother Hannah's fork slipped from her hand, and sibling Violet stared in disbelief. For the first time in her life, Eliana is no longer invisible, no longer a servant, No longer the despised child in the corner. She is the one with power. The brother couldn't help laughing. What are you talking about? Stop joking. Eliana smiled too, but it wasn't a friendly smile. She reached into her bag and took out the legal documents the lawyer had just given her, placing them on the table one by one. When Father Liam saw the document, his face turned pale. Stepmother Hannah grabbed the document with shaking hands and stammered, This is impossible." Eliana leaned back in her chair and said, "Oh, that's possible. And guess what? I also know you guys want to steal these from me." The room was dead silent. No one dared to speak. Her family, who had once treated her as a nobody, now sat there, feeling so powerless for the first time. Eliana saw the fear in their eyes, and this feeling made her feel refreshed. She watched her father Liam coughing and swallowing his drink with difficulty. Her stepmother Hannah's face lost all color and her hands trembled as she gripped the fork. Her brother and sister Violet looked at each other. Their once arrogant faces now filled with confusion and fear. She had never seen them like this before. "You're lying," the brother finally spoke again. "Are you kidding me?" Eliana didn't respond, but reached into her bag again, took out a thick stack of official documents with bold letters and legal stamps, and silently placed it in front of her father Liam. The sound of the waves outside was the only sound that broke the tense atmosphere. Father Liam picked up the document with trembling hands, his eyes scanning the text frantically, his lips parted, but no words came out. Stepmother Hannah snatched the document from him again and said tremblingly as she read it, "No, this can't be true." Eliana just leaned back in her chair and watched them quietly. For years, they had ignored her, treated her like a maid, a burden, and someone who didn't belong in this family. Now, they finally looked her in the face. "You tried to steal what was mine," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You lied, you hid, and now you have nothing." Sibling Violet was like a lost child, realizing at this moment that she was in big trouble. Her brother cleared his throat and said, "Eliana, we can explain." But Eliana raised her hand to stop him. "No, I understand everything now." Silence spread in the room, and the atmosphere became heavier. For the first time in her life, Eliana wasn't the one feeling insignificant, it was them. Eliana watched her once proud family fall apart before her eyes. Just moments ago, they had treated her like a nobody, but now they were in despair. Father Liam cleared his throat and said with a wry smile, "Eliana, my daughter, you don't understand. We were going to tell you about the inheritance." Stepmother Hannah nodded quickly and put her hand on her chest tremblingly. "Yes, dear, we don't want to burden you. We just want to protect you." Eliana raised her eyebrows. "Protect me? Do you mean the kind of protection where you ask me to carry your bags, sleep in a small room, and serve you like a maid?" She crossed her arms. "Are you protecting me, or are you stealing my things?" Sibling Violet quickly chimed in. The older brother smiled nervously and said, "Eliana, don't say that. We are a family and we love you." The younger sister wiped the fake tears from her eyes and said, "Yeah, don't be angry. You won't abandon us, right?" Eliana almost laughed out loud. Just a few minutes ago, she was not allowed to eat at the same table with her family, but now they suddenly treated her like a beloved sister. She leaned forward and looked them straight in the eye. "Oh, now I'm family, now I'm important, and what about, let the real guests eat first?" Father Liam swallowed hard. "It was a misunderstanding. We didn't mean it." Stepmother Hannah grabbed her hand and squeezed it hard, as if they were always very close. "Dear, you have to understand that we are under a lot of pressure. Please don't do anything extreme." Eliana pulled her hand back. "Oh, you mean something as drastic as stealing from your own daughter or forging documents to take something that doesn't belong to you?" There was another silence, and the Father Liam rubbed his forehead. "Listen, Eliana, we can solve this problem. We can be a happy family again, forget the past, and look forward together." The brother grinned, but his eyes were full of fear. "Yeah, now that you have money, we can even do business together." Eliana shook her head and sneered. "Doing business? So this is your purpose? You don't care about me at all, you just don't want to lose the source of money." The fake smiles on their faces disappeared, and the fear in their eyes became more and more obvious. They knew that Eliana had caught them. For many years, they ignored her and now wanted her to forget everything. Eliana looked at the shocked faces of her family around the table. Just moments ago, they had treated her like a nobody, but now they spoke in desperation, trying to cover up years of cruelty with false apologies. She let the silence linger, enjoying her father Liam's shaking hands, her stepmother Hannah's forced smile, and the way her siblings Violet kept looking at each other, hoping that someone would say something to save the situation. But they could say nothing. Nothing could erase the bad way they had treated her. Eliana took a deep breath and slowly stood up. The sound of the chair scraping against the floor was like the end of a chapter. She adjusted the elegant scarf on her shoulders, which silently reminded her that she was no longer the weak one, no longer the girl who was once controlled and forgotten by them. Then, with a sarcastic smile, she said, "Since I'm just your maid, You can clean up this mess yourselves. Stepmother Hannah gasped, and her brother opened his mouth wide. Eliana, wait. Liam, her father, began to speak, but she had already turned and left. She walked towards the restaurant exit, her head held high, her high heels tapping on the polished floor. Behind her, chaos broke out. Stepmother Hannah's voice was filled with despair and panic. You can't just leave like this. We are a family. The brother murmured to himself, this is impossible. This is not true. Liam, the always proud and in control father, sounded incredibly small this time. We made a mistake. Please give us a chance to make it up. Without missing a beat, Eliana stepped outside and breathed in the warm night air. The sound of crashing waves filled the silence. She had been betrayed by her family and had spent years begging for their love, trying to prove her worth. But now, she no longer needed their approval. She had power, freedom, and most importantly, the initiative. She headed towards her true private suite, not the tiny servants' quarters her family had been forced to live in. She felt more relaxed than ever. She didn't need to retaliate by screaming. This silent counterattack was more satisfying because she knew in her heart that her family would never forget this night, the night when they lost her forever. Eliana stepped off the plane in Lagos and breathed the familiar air, but this time everything was different. She is no longer the forgotten daughter, the family servant, or the girl longing for love. She is a powerful woman, a woman who takes back everything that belongs to her. The next morning, she walked into her lawyer's office to claim her inheritance, with documents before her proving she now owned millions of dollars in real estate, businesses, and investments left by her grandmother. Eliana stroked the documents gently with her fingers, still in disbelief. She had been living a hard life all these years, thinking she had nothing, while her family lived a luxurious life relying on her wealth. But now it was over. She was determined and in control of her life. She met with a business advisor, looked at her assets, and made smart decisions. Soon she was not only managing her grandmother's legacy, she was growing it, creating new businesses and making smart investments that expanded her grandmother's legacy. Today, Eliana's name is revered in the business world. She is not just an heiress, but a powerful woman who built a business empire in her own right. However, as she rose, her family began to decline. Her father Liam's business began to struggle, and without Eliana's hidden financial support, it quickly fell apart. Her stepmother Hannah, once so confident and cruel, is now deeply in debt. The brothers and sisters who once laughed at and humiliated her are now without support and are struggling. Then the calls started coming in. First, her stepmother Hannah contacted her. Dear Eliana, you know we always love you. We made some mistakes, but we are still a family. Can we meet? She didn't respond. Then her brother sent a message. Hey, sis, times are hard right now. Can you lend me some money? I swear I will pay you back. She still didn't reply. Her father, Liam, ever strong and proud, left her a voicemail. Eliana, please let us talk. She deleted it. They never really considered her a family member before, just a tool to use. Now they want her back, not because they love her, but because they need her money. But Eliana has learned her lesson and she has surrounded herself with people who truly care about her, friends, mentors, and business partners who respect her and appreciate her for who she is, not for what she can give. One evening, she sat in her luxurious apartment in Lagos, sipping tea and watching the sunset. She smiled and lamented that although she had lost her family, she had gained much more than she had lost, including self-esteem, success, and freedom. Her family had made their choice, and now she had made hers, and she had never looked back. 10 years later, the world has changed dramatically. Eliana's name frequently appears in business magazines, TV interviews, and social media. The powerful empire she built was not only based on the legacy left by her grandmother, but more on her own efforts, wisdom, and tenacity. People admire her story, a woman who rose from betrayal and humiliation to become a powerful force that cannot be ignored. However, while Eliana's career was booming, her family was falling apart. Her father Liam's business went bankrupt under the weight of bad decisions and huge outstanding debts. His once thriving company is now left with empty office space, and employees have long since left because they haven't received wages for months. At first, Liam was too proud to ask Eliana for help, but when he had nowhere else to turn, he spoke up. Eliana, I was wrong, and I understand now. Please help me rebuild my career. She never responded. Her stepmother, Hannah, the woman who once treated her like a servant and laughed at her, is exposed for fraud. The same greed that once allowed her to steal Eliana's inheritance is now her downfall and her arrest. The family name, once highly respected, is now a laughingstock. The brothers and sisters who once laughed at her are now jobless and struggling to survive. One by one, they send her message after message with apologies, excuses, and desperate calls for help. Eliana, We were just ignorant children back then. Now that you are so successful, can't you forgive us? We are still a family." But Eliana understands that family is not just about blood ties, but more importantly, it is about love, respect, and loyalty, which her family has never given her. One day, she passed by her father Liam's former office building. Many years ago, it was in this place that Liam refused to let her eat at the table, saying that she was not a real guest. Now Liam has nothing, and she has become what Liam once wanted to be. She smiled at the place that had humiliated her, the former maid, now the person they regretted not treating well. But she was no longer angry, only calm. Because true revenge is not about making them suffer, but about proving that you have always been valuable, that you have always been good enough. Eliana found happiness in her own success and achieved her greatest victory in her own right.